Monday for Mediators and Arbitrators. My name is Natalie Armstrong-Motin with Marketing Resolution, and it's Monday. Today we're going to talk about why your SOP could be killing your practice and 7 ways to make your standard operating procedure, your SOP, a little bit more user-friendly. But before we get started, just want to say, again, thanks so much for joining me. I've got my cappuccino. It's a cold, rainy, stormy afternoon here in Normandy, but I'm glad that you're spending this time with me. We always want to start our week off to build our practices, develop our client relationships, really make the most of our practices with intention. So that's why we meet these Monday mornings. Of course, you can always find these videos on YouTube anytime that you're looking for information. But let's start talking about your SOP, your standard operating procedure. And so I want to ask just a really quick couple of questions. You don't have to answer them in the comments, but think about the answers for yourself. So have you ever started in on an online purchase or started in on a project with a company or on a website that really should have been either one or maybe a couple of pretty easy steps, but then you really quickly found yourself mired down in jargon and pop-ups and what I think are never-ending forms? It happens to me more often than I'd like. Or have you ever started and then just stopped mid-form, mid-process, and just walked away and just backed out and gone off and found another provider of the same service or the same product? I get it. And I also understand that, we spend lots of time laboring, really working to create our own private practice processes, procedures, and forms. Some of us, we come out of our training and we adopt the forms that have been given us. We try to copy and paste and edit and make them our own. We can buy forms. There are lots of different ways to get your SOP forms, processes, and procedures. But I know that it's not without a great amount of effort. And so you spend all this time and this effort putting together your forms and your processes. You've got your SOP, you've got your manual down, and then it just doesn't work out the way you think it should. Clients and prospective clients aren't filling the forms out completely or maybe at all. They're not reading the full information that you've provided them, and then they ask what you think is the very obvious question because you've just explained everything in your email. And then it happens. We're all sort of up to here with, emails and et cetera. And so what we want to think about today for our practice development is making our SOP, our forms, our letters more consumer friendly, more client friendly, easier for our clients to get through. Because when we do that, it starts the mediation or the arbitration off right. It's a well-designed SOP, and that leads to further communication, that leads to further referrals, that leads to further work, better marketing, better practice development. And it all starts with this little aspect of customer service. So let's see who we've got here. We've got Abe. Hi, Abe. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining on Marketing Monday. So a well-designed form or procedure, it's a lot like the conversations that we have with people, or rather it should be a lot like the conversations that we have with people. When you're asking your clients for information and you want them to submit their responses, it needs to be done in such a way that we don't make that process more difficult or more frustrating. We don't want them to back out. We don't want them to go find another provider. We want them to stay with us. So we need to make these things easier, more client friendly, shorter, clearer, right? These are all good things that we could do. So designing a user-friendly form or process, I get it, can be tricky. We have very specific things that we need from our clients. So we don't want to compromise the information that we need to get from them, but we need to get the information from them in such a way that they aren't frustrated with us, because that's just bad business. So we want to, if we can, provide clients an opportunity to communicate with us in a way that they're most comfortable communicating. So if, as you have looked at the psychographics of your primary clients, think about how they like their information. Do they want the long, drawn out narrative? I would suggest that very few of our clients have that preference. Most of our clients need a short introductory paragraph and then a bulleted list of do this by this date via this medium with these supporting documents, right? Just bing, bing, bing. Make it clear, make it brief. Help them out, really, truly. There is no doubt that we have to have SOPs. We have to have these standard operating procedures. They really do decrease variability in our processes. And as we decrease that procedural variability, it increases our control and their comfort with these processes. That's a really good thing. But again, we have to compromise a little bit. We have to standardize the small parts, right? The little constituent procedures in order to control the larger picture or the overall process. So SOPs that help us and our clients to control these processes and ultimately their outcomes does require that we have a little internal quality control. And this kind of quality control will serve two really important purposes, I think. One is functionality. The functionality, so in sort of everyday operational terms, it standardizes the procedural performance. So that once a client has used our forms, gone through our process, the next time they come back to us, it's familiar, it's easy, no problem. They can click through it, they can absorb it, they can print it out, they can respond, they can reply, they can attach, etc. Right? And then, of course, strategically for us, these SOPs operate as maybe a compliance tool for those of us who are in regions or jurisdictions that have compliance requirements. These SOPs will help meet those standards. So we want to do that. So communication, another big key in these forms, these letters, these SOPs. And so if your procedural communication is too long, too complicated, or not at all clear to your clients, they don't know what to do next, they don't know what documents to send, they don't know what supporting information, they don't have the links, they don't have whatever it is, then your SOP is letting them down, and that lets you down. Not good for anybody. And if you are noticing that you send out letters and forms to clients and prospective clients, and then you're customizing each letter, you're customizing each form, you're just spending an exorbitant amount of time in this communication, and still clients and prospective clients write you back with wrong answers, wrong information, incomplete information, or an email that just says, I don't get it, I'm confused, you need this by what, I can't figure out your online calendar, I don't understand, I don't have the link, I've already sent it twice, why are you not receiving it? If you're getting that kind of communication, that's really, really bad for not just your practice, but our industry. And so we really want to make sure that we look at our processes, our SOPs, our forms, and our letters with a critical eye. And so if you've got someone in your family that you can set up a fake account and go through that with no assistance from you, and check your processes, check your procedures, and have them give you really honest feedback, that would be fantastic. Because it's not at all uncommon when I talk to clients that their forms or their letters are simply ignored. And these, like I said, these are all portions of a conversation, this SOP. It's a conversation with your clients. And that first impression is really, really important in this conversation. So when your clients see your letters and your forms for the first time, you want them to have a positive reaction and not get scared away by something that's overwhelming or disorganized. And on top of that, your form should be clear and understandable. There should never be any question what it is that you're asking for or why you're asking for that particular piece of information. These are some really simple criteria, but they are some of the most basic reasons that our communications get ignored. So let's talk about some sort of back to basics features of user-friendly letters and forms, right? These are some just really quick, simple ways that you can get your letters and forms off to a good user-friendly start. First is the title. Every document, every step of your process or your procedure needs to be bifurcated if they are completely, totally separate and different, one thing from the other, or they need to be lumped together into like-minded groups or columns, right? And whichever way you choose to go for your practice, you do need to think about the title of these documents or the title of the page on your website, however it is that you're presenting the information, because the title is how your client is going to find that information, how they're going to absorb what it is you're looking for from them. So be really clear. The title also, that's the first thing that any of your clients are going to see, right? It's in the subject line, it's on the document, or it's on the web page. However you're presenting your information, be sure that your title is clear and specific. Let your clients know exactly where they are in the process or what precisely you need from them on this document or attachment. And then labeling. So sometimes we have not just the letter, but we send out a form and we're asking our clients to fill in the fields, right? Which is fine, that's excellent. And if your clients are filling in forms, you have to be really careful that there's a lot of clarity to each one of those fields. And an easy way to do that is to put the label of the field either above or below that field and not to the left or the right. And I know that seems like it's nitpicky, but it actually makes a big difference. It makes it a lot easier for your clients to determine, to figure out exactly what they're responding to when they're filling in all of those fields. Talking about fields, you can always make it easier for your clients by pre-filling fields. So if you use an app like Wufoo or Salesforce or any of the other thousands of apps that are available for us, help them out by pre-filling some of those fields. That would be their name, the parties' names, the date, the process, the location, the time, all of those kinds of fields. If you can fill those in for your clients, that's always appreciated. Spacing on your form or spacing on your letters or spacing on your email. Again, I know it seems like a detail, but when we add extra spacing around really important content, it not only sets it apart and sort of highlights it with the white space around it, but it also makes your forms and makes your communication a lot less overwhelming. It doesn't have so much weightiness to it, and that can be a good thing for your clients. So think about how you use white space and spacing on your forms. And then, of course, styling on your forms. We always want to reinforce our brand ID. So if your forms are a PDF attachment, or they're in an email, or they're downloadable, or they're in a letter, or however you're presenting your information, your SOP forms to your clients, make sure that the forms are pretty. Make sure that they reflect your brand ID. Reinforcing your brand ID on your forms will help your clients feel more confident that they've chosen the right provider. They are going to be much more comfortable with your services when they're giving you information because of that reinforcement, because of that validation. And then sections. Let's talk about sections. Breaking your letters and forms up into sort of easily identifiable sections will really help your clients better understand any deadlines or expectations or file formats, etc. You might consider something as simple as, pre-mediation forms, mediation forms, post-mediation documents, however it is that you want to break up or section out your forms so that they are absolutely, without a doubt, no question, clear to your clients. I would recommend that you do that. And then question phrasing. When you're typing an email or you're creating a form or you're putting together a process, again, keep in mind that this is all part of a conversation. And so if a process or a form is meant to be more like a conversation, then the way you phrase your questions can have a pretty big impact. An example would be, Instead of labeling a field date available, you could just as easily ask in a much friendlier way, what date would you prefer? It's a little chattier, it's a little friendlier, it doesn't lack any professionalism, but it has more connectivity in the phrasing. And so today's a good day. Open up your forms, open up your SOP, open up your policies and your procedures, and pretend as though you had never read any of those documents before. And think about how you can simplify things, how can you rephrase things, how can you delete something that people just aren't getting, aren't understanding, and maybe it's just not necessary. Think about the interactions that your SOPs are having with your clients. Think about what works really well, what doesn't work really well, what's frustrating for them, what's frustrating for you, and make some changes. Today's a great day to make that happen. So some key points to take away from today's Marketing Monday is to, order your SOP thoughtfully. It really should track right down the line from first phone call to settlement. It should have a logical track. And if you're going to use questions that are conditional, make sure they're relevant. And don't limit how your clients can answer, because we really never know what's coming through the door, do we? Choose your questions carefully. You might be asking too much and therefore getting nothing at all. So we want to be careful how we phrase those. And again, phrasing things as though they were a portion of a conversation gets much better rates of result. And then to your absolute best ability, anticipate what their questions and confusion will be. Be proactive. You've used these forms, you know what the conversations are, you know what the feedback is, or where they ignore it, or where something gets dropped. So be proactive. Go into your forms, go into your SOP and fix it today. And then once you've done that, test it again. Make sure that it's right. You test it, have other people in your office test it, your neighbors, your significant other, heck, anybody, your kids, but test it and make sure that it's clear and it's brief and that it gets the information that you need to be able to do your work, but in such a way that your clients have enjoyed providing it to you. All right. So that is it for me on another Marketing Monday. I hope that you are doing well, staying safe, taking care of each other, and I'll wish you all the best for the week. If you have anything that you'd like for me to talk about in upcoming episodes, be sure to let me know. If you've got questions, concerns, issues, put it in a comment, send it to me in email. We'll get it addressed for you. Well, that's it. Thanks very much for joining me on Marketing Monday. Be a good human.